At that time, Brother Nashi, I was someone who had suffered so much in my life, and I was sick of that kind of a lifestyle whereby for you to survive, you have to leave everything in the hands of God. All that I wanted in that moment was to be in control of my destiny, not to leave my destiny in the hands of some God who had failed me and failed my father and those that had lived before him. So I went ahead, and when my turn came, because we were sitting in a very long line, when my turn came, I entered into that consultation room knowing exactly what was going to happen to me. I had already been given a knife, because when you are sitting in line, the first thing that they do once you go and sit in line, they give you a very long knife that you will use once you have entered into the consultation room. So all along when I was sitting, whilst looking at all the mentally challenged people that were all over that traditional healers homestead, I kept on looking at the knife that I was holding, asking myself 1,000 questions that I could not even answer. When I entered into that room, that is when I saw that the whole scenario had changed, because in front of me there was a small bowel. This small bowel that was in front of me, it was full of blood, and I was immediately told not to be afraid, because the blood that I was looking at, the blood that was inside that small bowel, it was said to be that of a goat that had been recently slaughtered. So I was not to be afraid. This was not a blood of a human being. I was then told what to do with the blood that was inside that bowel that was placed in front of me. I was told that I had to wash my hands with the blood of that goat that had been recently slaughtered. After I had performed this ritual, I was then asked to follow this other man who was standing in front of me, the man who was going to assist me throughout the process of me getting this blood money. I was instructed to step further into that room. It was quite a dark room, and at the end of that room there was this other mysterious light. From where this light was coming from, I could not even understand, but you could see clearly at the end of that room that there was a white cloth that covered the other part of the wall. From the floor up to the roof, the white fabric was white and it sparkled at all the times. So that man that was assisting me told me that he could not proceed any further. Now everything that was going to happen will be left in my hands. I was told what to do. I had to approach that white fabric that was hanging on the wall from the floor going up till the roof. I was told that once I had approached that white fabric, I had to write the name of the one that I wanted to die whilst I was busy performing this ritual. I tried writing the name of my beloved sister, but after I had failed to write her name on that white sparkling cloth that was hanging on the wall, I then tried writing the names of my cousin and some of my relatives, but no matter how hard I tried, none of their names ever appeared on that white fabric that was hanging on the walls. That was when I thought of writing my mother's name, and when I wrote my mother's name, I didn't want her name to appear on that white fabric, because she was like the woman that I loved the most in this whole world. That is why I had started with my siblings, because there were some of my siblings that I was ready to sacrifice, and when it came to my cousins, sisters and brothers, most of them I didn't like them anyway. And all along, when I had been trying to write the names of my relatives on that white fabric that was hanging on the wall, it was because I was trying to avoid writing the name of my mom. In that moment, I had told myself that I would only write my mother's name under desperate conditions, and now I was desperate. When I wrote my mother's name, it appeared on that white fabric. But my mother's name did not just appear, it appeared as it was covered in blood on that white fabric. That was how I sacrificed my mother. As I was standing in front of that white fabric, my brother, my mother was then called by that same traditional healer that I had not yet seen, because from the moment that I had stepped my foot at his homestead, I was then taken to his wife. So his wife was the one whom you could speak with. Then the wife would go and speak with her husband. Even if you wanted to pay the money, you had to give the wife the money. As for that traditional healer, one could not see him as you wished, because that traditional healer, he was always placed hidden behind a black cloth so that his clients could not see his face. That traditional healer, whilst I was standing in that consulting room where all of the rituals were done, that traditional healer then summoned my mother to appear before him. And she then appeared, my brother. For a very short period of time, I managed to see my mother, everything that she was doing in real life. I saw that my mother, she was walking from the fields as she was walking back home, whilst she was singing, without any knowledge as to what her son was busy doing at that traditional healer's place. Then I saw that there was a black goat that stood in her place, but this black goat that was appearing on that same fabric that had been hanging on the wall, and I was instructed to kill that goat that had appeared on that fabric without showing it no mercy. I had to kill that goat without ever showing it no mercy, and that was what I did, my brother. I took that knife that had been given to me whilst I was sitting in line earlier on. Then I stabbed that goat, and after I had stabbed the goat then fell to the ground. After the goat had fallen to the ground, I saw that this was not a goat as such, but it was my mother, because my mother, she was now sitting on the ground as she was crying in pain. I had stabbed my mother, and she kept on crying in pain, saying that she had stepped on a thorn, and after she had stepped on a thorn, it had entered deep into her foot. And in that moment, I felt as if I wanted to jump into that white fabric so that I can assist my mother. But I could not do that, because all of these things that were happening, they were happening in the spiritual world. When blood started flowing out of her wound where that thorn had entered into her body, then the white fabric changed its color and it became red. But when that white fabric started changing its color, it was as if it was a chameleon that was changing its colors, because it kept on changing the colors slowly until it stopped at the color red. It became red, but this was not your regular red color. This color, it was dark blood red, and I was told that my sacrifice had been accepted.